She by Sir Henry Rider Haggard. A triumph of imaginative romance. Outlined by Harold Van Tromp. Part 1. The Dim Past. Far, far back, 2,000 years and more ago, dwelt a great white queen, the she of the story, in the mighty city of Kor, which lay hidden in a crater-like valley of the feverish hinterlands of the coast of old Africa, near to what we now call Zanzibar. 200 miles from the wild country where the city of Kor stood, rolled, as it still rolls, the Zambezi River. Sacred and solitary stood the city with its vast white palace of truth. She, the Queen Aisha, was a descendant of the pure Arabs who traced their line from Yarab, son of Qatan, who lived long centuries before Abraham was. For the blood of the alien family of Ishmael ran not in her veins. Of this strange country, the great white Queen Aisha was at once the Circe and the Cleopatra. For countless years she had ruled over this wild and precipitous land. Beautiful and fascinating beyond the power of words to describe, she combined in her person the more than earthly beauty of Helen of Troy with a wisdom more subtle than that of Solomon. Earth held from her no secret. The hidden forces of nature lay at her command. She was all but immortal, for she had all but conquered that change which we human mortals call death. These secrets she had wrung by her beauty and her cunning from an aged hermetical philosopher who passed his grey days in lonely contemplation among the rocky caverns of this gloomy land of shadows. There also, remote from the city of Kor, in a cave far removed from the haunts of men, Aisha had fathomed the secrets of the fire of life, the fire that burns and turns as it roars like a giant's pulse from the very heart of the great globe itself. And wonderful in its colossal architecture was Kor, haunt of a busy race of men, seekers of truth through the long ages, until at last came fell pestilence to sweep them into the limbo of the things that are forgotten, leaving myriads of their bones as bleached witnesses of the day that was gone forever, mute memories of faint threnodies silently passing into eternity. Aisha still lived to rule over fresh waves of humanity that came with the never-ending ebb and flow of time. When one day, twice 200 years before the time of Christ, came strange visitors, storm-cast on the coast. A priest of Isis, Callicrates, the beautiful in strength, and his lovely wife, Amenartas. A fair daughter of the pharaohs was this Amenartas, and for her beauty and her love had Callicrates broken his vows of celibacy. It was hurried flight or death. So it had been flight, a flight, as it proved, from the wrath of an offended goddess to the hideous vengeance of a jealous woman. Let Amenartas tell the tale. I, Amenartas, of the royal house of the pharaohs, wife of Callicrates, the beautiful in strength, a priest of Isis, to my little son, Tisisthenes, the mighty avenger. I fled with thy father from Egypt in the days of the last pharaoh of my native land, causing him through love to break the vows he had vowed. We fled southward across the waters, and we wandered for twice 12 moons on the coast of Libya that looks towards the rising sun. Cast on a coast where wildfowl hid the sky, wild men took us a 10-day journey till we came to a hollow mountain where a great city had been and fallen, and where there are caves of which no man hath seen the end. And they brought us to the queen of the people, who placed pots upon the heads of strangers, who is a magician, having a knowledge of all things, and life and loveliness that does not die. And she cast eyes of love upon thy father Callicrates, and would have slain me and taken him to husband, but he loved me and feared her and would not. Then did she take us by terrible ways by means of dark magic to where the great pit is, and showed to us the pillar of life, which is of flame, and she did stand in the flame, and came more beautiful yet. Then did she swear to make thy father undying even as she is, if he would but slay me and give himself to her. For me she could not slay because of the magic of my people that I have. And he held his hand before his eyes to hide her beauty, and would not. Then in her rage did she smite him by her magic, and he died. But she wept over him, and bore him thence with lamentations, and being afraid, she sent me to the mouth of a river where ships come, and I was carried far away to where I gave thee birth, and hither to Athens I came at last. Now I say to thee, my son, Tisisthenes, seek out the woman, learn the secret of life, and if thou mayest find a way to slay her, because of thy father Callicrates, and if thou dost fail, this I say to all thy seed who come after thee, till at last a brave man be found among them, who shall bathe in the fire, and sit in the place of the Pharaohs. These things I speak of be past belief, yet I lie not. And at long last two brave men came, and they saw she who must be obeyed, and listened to her wisdom, that was deeper than the wisdom of Solomon, and worshipped her beauty, that was more precious than that of Helen of the fair face, that launched 1,000 ships, and burnt the topless towers of Ilium. And they saw a wonder that no mortal eye had ever seen before, nor would ever gaze upon again. Part 2. The ages pass. It was rather more than less by chance, Rider Haggard declares, that the manuscript of this narrative fell into his hands. The interest aroused by reading one of Rider Haggard's own books of travel and adventure induced its author, Ludwig Horace Holly, to make Rider Haggard his confidant, and afford him the opportunity of giving these remarkable adventures to the world at large. In the letter, forwarding the manuscript, Holly expressed some regret that he did not seize the chance, while it lay within his power, of obtaining much more information regarding many recondite subjects of controversy from that remarkable woman, Ayesha. But the regret was futile, and it must be acknowledged that in the trying circumstances in which he was placed, and the almost inhuman tension to which his nerves were subjected, Holly did very well indeed. He also expressed his expectation that his story might be disbelieved. Rider Haggard admits that he was himself somewhat skeptical. But as he says in his introduction to the story, he came to the conclusion that, on the whole, it seemed to bear the stamp of truth on the face of it. Certainly, Holly's narrative is singularly free from any trace of the least ambiguity. A man of high intellectual attainments, an accomplished scholar, a master of languages, living and dead, including Arabic, a man possessing a mind singularly free from any narrow prejudices and keenly sensitive to logical deduction, he is a narrator singularly trustworthy and obviously sincere. 20 years earlier, strange responsibility had been thrust upon him. While sitting in his rooms at Cambridge, musing moodily before the expiring embers of his fire, he was just going up for his fellowship. A tap had come at his door. It was his only college friend, Vincy. Holly knew him at once by his hacking cough, Indeed, Vinci thought himself a dying man. Like the Callicrates of old, he had married a beautiful woman, but of Greek extraction. Again, like Callicrates, he was to have one child only, a son, and in giving birth to this son, his wife had died. The boy, Leo, was now a lovely child of 5, with glorious golden hair and a face like an Apollo. Like Callicrates, more than that. But the beautiful Leo was the last lineal descendant of Tisiphines, the Avenger, the child whom the widowed daughter of the pharaohs, wife of the renegade priest of Isis, had borne posthumously to Callicrates, the last of a line of would-be avengers, some of whom had tried and failed to carry out the behest of the injured Amenartas. Indeed, what did Vinci in Latin vindex signify but avenger? Vinci knew the story and had vainly tried to seek the great white queen. Now he begs Holly, friendly, kindly, but ugly old Holly, to become guardian to the little boy Leo, to educate him and watch over him until, when the boy shall grow to be a man of 25, the contents of the strong box, which he struggles under the weight of now, shall be scrutinized by Leo himself. Then may Leo please himself whether he takes up the burden of the quest or not. He is the last of the avengers. If he cares to seek the white queen Aisha, bathe in the fire of life, kill Aisha and sit in the place of the pharaohs, well and good. That is the trust, and admirable but ugly old Holly is the man to guard the secret. A strange story, and Holly is at first extremely skeptical, but the terms are generous. Holly is a bachelor. The fellowship will render him independent of the ordinary cares of the world, and so he accepts the strange trust. And when in course of time the great big iron box is at last opened, out come the mystic shards, texts in uncial and cursive Greek, a casket standing on sphinx-like legs, a scarabæus, and other marvels. Quite conclusive is the shard with its translation into bleak letter in elegant literary English. I, Amenartas, of the royal house of the pharaohs. Part 3. The Voyage. In 3 months' time, we are on the high seas. We must assume that the narrative is our friend Holly's, but the hand of Rider Haggard is evident in the shaping of the chapters in which it is set down. Only a practiced novelist could have written so vivid a description of the squall, so terrible a narration of the terrific fight between a lion and a crocodile, witnessed by the adventurers after they have been cast, more dead than alive, on the swampy coast near Zanzibar. Such convincing details of their capture by a gang of the savages of the district, and so intimate a description of old Father Bilali, who rescues them from the grasp of these performers of the ritual of the hot pot. We are indeed with weird people, and in the midst of horrid customs, but good Bilali, heavens, what would our friends have done without Bilali, is a very present help in time of trouble. From whatever country thou wanderest, said Bilali, stroking his beautiful white beard, and by the way, it must be from one where some of our language is known, that teach their children courtesy there. My stranger son, but wherefore comest thou into this land? Art thou, and are those with thee, weary of life? We come to find new things, I answered boldly. We are tired of the old things. We have risen up out of the sea to know that which is unknown. We are a brave race that fear not death. My very much respected father, that is, if we can win a little more information before we die. Humph, said the old gentleman. That may be true. It is rash to contradict otherwise. I should declare that thou wast lying, my son. However, I dare to say that she who must be obeyed will meet thy wishes in the matter. Who is she who must be obeyed? I asked curiously. The old man glanced at the bearers and then answered with a little smile that sent the blood to my heart. Surely, my stranger son, thou wilt learn soon enough if it be her pleasure to see thee at all in the flesh. Indeed, Leo and Holly are lucky to live to see the wonderful she at all. For what, with hot pots and other unpleasant native customs, their days pass uneasily. The land seems full of catacombs and the skulls of the dead of long ago. The natives themselves are frightened to go inside the walls of Old Kor. The ancient city is haunted, they say. This was indeed an exceptionally unpleasant land. There were far too many preserved corpses lying everywhere to make an evening constitutional a pleasant thing. The country, too, was fever-ridden. Leo soon fell to a victim, and had it not been for a very extraordinary concatenation of circumstances, we should have heard little more of the youthful genius of the art of revenge. A country of formidable precipices, too, making the presence of wild animals undesirable. Still, there were some beautiful creatures there. The antelope roamed round, and the cry of the quagga, quagga filled the air. Great painted butterflies flitted in the sunshine, and beats screamed in the ghoul-haunted shadows. And then there was this great white queen, whose word was more than law, and to disobey whom was worse than death. Part 4. Aisha and the Caves of Kor. Surely unique in history, in romance or legend, this queen, a queen of spell and the art of magic, not lacking a pretty wit, nor a stranger to the humour that springs ever freshly from the gloom of tragedy, yet wise, very wise withal. Indeed, she had taught wisdom in the days that were no more. Yes, at the gate of the temple of those white-bearded hypocrites, the Jews. But they had spurned her and stoned her, witness the marks on her fair body to this day. And so they had made her look with evil eyes across the world, and had driven her to this wilderness. And in spite of her wisdom and knowledge, in spite of her magic, there were strange limitations to her vision of the things there be. For she had known the Greeks and loved them, and the Egyptians, and had tasted of the cunning of their arts, had she not? Had not that hell-cat, Aminatus, cozened her, cursed her? But what was the good of cursing her now? It was all over. But he would come again. She would wait. In the meantime, she would ask Holly, that intelligent stranger with a face like a baboon. Was the temple still standing that the wise man built? And that Messiah about whose coming so much had been prophesied, had he come? Did he rule the world? Oh, they had killed him, had they? Well, that's what they would do. Herod? No, she had never heard of him. And there were other religions, were there? She was not surprised. Man was ever seeking change. Change? Well, what men call death is but change. Sleeping and forgetting, that was all. But there was always an awakening, and the fire of life, that was the secret. She had bathed in it. She had wanted her loved Callicrates to bathe in it. She was immortal, if not for eternity, will for thousands of years, and her Callicrates. When he came, he should bathe in it, and he should be her husband for ever and ever. But curse that Egyptian crocodile. Curse her shadow, curse her. Ka. This book of She is full of shadows, mythological shadows, echoes, reminiscences of Egyptian ritual and Egyptian tenets. The worship of woman in this strange land, the virgin queen wife, the mummification of the dead, the temple to truth, the architecture, the inscriptions, even that Scarabaeus found in the iron chest. Leo had caused it to be set in gold for a finger ring. And when Aisha sees it on Holly's finger, oh, how she screams with excitement. It is the sign of her love of the long ago. He is dying? Quick! She will be with him and save him. In this book, one beautiful figure stands out, supreme in its simple, faithful love. There is a touching and tender picture of the girl Ustein, who falls in love with Leo and follows him to the death. For death it is. Must there always be another woman between him and her passion? The White Queen wonders. So she marks Ustein with the horrid white marks of her jealous fingers. But Ustein flees the wrath, only to come again and beg her love to fly to safety. Too late. She is blasted and falls. And the White Queen woos the man, her Callicrates, across the dead body of the faithless girl. Faithful girl, Ustein. Or Amenartas, who shall say? And in the end he yields to her more than mortal fascinations. There is a powerful scene in which Aisha shows Leo his dead self of 20 centuries ago with the horrid red stab just over the heart. Just such an Apollo of beauty. But Aisha wants no corpses now to shed tears over. She will destroy it forever. It crumbles before the eyes of Leo, ashes to ashes, the past to the past, and now to bathe in the fire of life. Part 5. What they saw. Antres vast and deserts idle, said Othello. No mountain of the moon could be more desolate than the cliffs that bar the way to the cave of the fire of life. But mummies must be burnt like candles at a great garden party before the expedition is undertaken. Nero burnt live Christians. Aisha was not even a Jew to burn. But the horrid orgies are alight with human tallow. The old mummies make good firewood today in Egypt, a land with a plentiful lack of timber. And then the journey, and the romance moves to its tragic close. In the Stygian gloom of a cave that seems to be buried in the very bowels of the earth, the last great scene is enacted. The unholy rites, the rushing fire, the roar of the furnace as it spins as though it turned on the very axis of the globe itself. And love has conquered death. But was it love? Are the ashes of that slaughtered Callicrates? Is the dead body beautiful in silence? Of the frail Ustein lying there pleading to the mercy of heaven? Is all that love? One more glory for Aisha as she steps into the bright flame of life, immortal. How radiant she looks, lovelier than ever Eve looked in paradise. Come, my Callicrates. But in a moment, and her lovely hair is falling, and the eyes that outshone the stars in splendor are fading away, and, oh horrors, the great White Queen is little more than a heap of dust, resembling nothing so much as a hideous witch of twice 1,000 years old. She who lived in the dust of the world and the dust of love has gone back to dust, ashes to ashes. So closes the book, so far as the real catastrophe is concerned. But writing with the enthusiasm of a man hot in chase of his theme, the author carries the action to a splendid close in a chapter or two in which he vividly describes the struggle homeward across the horrible swamp, the past appalling dangers, to the dark, rolling Zambezi hundreds of miles away. The kindly figure of the humorous Billali, still slightly acid in speech and wise in counsel, is the last glimpse we get of this land of marvels. There is something lingering but humorous about old Billali. We love him, and no one will read the first page of this fine romance and rest with a clear conscience in bed until he has said goodbye to Billali. And the last
my orders,
page.
disobey my command.